This is the BG Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm your host, Baxter Colburn. Welcome to a Monday edition of the show. Hope your weekend went well. Hope you had some good time with the family. And for those of you soccer fans, I hope you enjoyed opening day of Major League Soccer as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show for you UFC fans as well. I'm sure you were probably thrown off by how UFC 196 ended, but as we mentioned, we'll get to that a little bit later on in the show as well. We've got a great show in store for you today. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy Monday to spend time with us here on the BG Sports Show. We've got a full list of guests for you today. As we mentioned, Connor Christensen will be here a little bit later on in the program to talk about UFC 196 and the fact that all the spoilers that did happen with the upsets in Miesha Tate winning and also Nate Diaz as well. So he'll give us his full review of everything that happened with that. David Kenyon of Bleacher Report will be here to join us in just a little while as well, because if you're listening to the show live on Spreaker right now, you know that Peyton Manning is in the process of finishing up his retirement press conference, so we will hit his full reaction from that and kind of get an idea from David where he stands with Peyton Manning's retirement, if it was a good time, bad time, and all that stuff. So he'll be here in our second segment. And we've got a couple other great interviews as well. We'll be getting to Mike Ferry a little bit later on in our program as well. He's got some interesting short little fitness tips for us as well, to 3 ways to improve your happiness and heart during the next timeout or halftime as well. So be on the lookout for that. And our first guest we'll get to in just a minute, but I want to take a minute to remind all of you that you can find all of us here on the BG Sports Show by listening to us on Sports Radio America from 4 to 6 p.m. Central Time on sportsradioamerica.com and on TuneIn. You can also find us on demand on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and on Spreaker.com on the Mondays and Thursdays, and you can also find us live on Spreaker.com from 1 to 2 p.m. Central Time right here on Spreaker.com. For you social media folks, you can interact with the show anytime by going to our Facebook page and liking it, The BG Sports Show on Facebook, and then on Twitter at BG Sports Show and at Baxter Colburn if you want to interact with us that way. And you can also always get a hold of us via email by emailing us at bgsportshow at gmail.com. Excuse me. All right, so our first guest on the show today, a man that is very unique and funny. For those of you that like the comic book world, you might enjoy what this guy has to offer for you. He is the creator of the trademarked Mike cartoon sports character. His name is Jim Sweeney. He's crafted his digital innovation to become the first universal animated brand in sports, which is not very easy to do at times with those that know the sports world. Jim's property has enjoyed an incredible start in the digital media world. In addition, he's penned over 821 blogs, and he has also published 38 Mike sports comic books. With all that being said, Jim Sweeney, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
You are very welcome, Jim. So we got to get right to it. So this Mike comic book, what is it for those that don't know? I have the picture in front of me so I can see it and understand it, but give us a little bit of background on what that is.
Mike is my ego. I've always had an affinity for comics, for sports, for words, for laughter, for humor. And I just felt a couple years ago that there was a major void in the marketplace, especially in the sports arena of sports. And I'm thinking, why has no one ever created or developed a cartoon sports character?
That is true, yeah. I've noticed that too.
Yeah. The only ones that have ever been out there over the years have been Peter Puck in hockey, and Fox Sports Network has the blue transformer robot by the name of Cletus.
That's true, yeah.
But Cletus really doesn't transcend all sports. He's mostly football-specific and does some baseball. But Cletus doesn't sing. He doesn't entertain. He doesn't talk. And I think that was a shortcoming Fox had when they created the character. So my alter ego, something that's been coursing through my bloodstream since I was born, has been the character of Mike. Okay. And we call Mike the ultimate talking head on sports because he's a microphone. His real name is Michael Anthony Raffone, a.k.a. Microphone, or simply Mike.
I love it. So that's fantastic.
He's unbelievably simple, but extraordinarily brilliant. And my goal for the character is quite audacious. I believe I've created the first ever animated brand that transcends all sports. I'm talking about SpongeBob big, Mickey Mouse big, Bart Simpson big, but in the world of sports. Okay. And Mike is crafted such that you should eventually see him on Jumbotrons, and you could do an in-game entertainment. You can see him on TV interacting or bantering back and forth. with real-life celebrities as an alter ego character.
Wow, that's fantastic. Talking with the creator of Mike, the comic book series here, Jim Sweeney, on the BG Sports Show. So, Jim, along with creating Mike, you've also, as we mentioned in your little intro there, you've been writing a couple blogs, you've written a couple sports comic books as well, but what other content for Mike is out there for people to get their hands on?
You can find a lot of content for Mike at the website themike.com. That's TheeMike.com, themike.com. I've written since I started, developing content for the character. I've penned 831 blogs. I blog at least 4 times a week through the voice of the character, Mike. And I've also published 38 sports comic books that has all of our original content for comics having to do with sports, and they're all written through the voice, Mike. Eventually Mike will be animated, and you'll see him on TV and Jumbotrons, but to get him out there, I was able to start off in digital publishing, and, in hindsight, what a great way to get a character out there through
absolutely.
The written word on both blogs as well as ebooks.
So you mentioned that your long-term goal is to obviously get him animated and published in that aspect. Is that your end game for Mike, or what is your official end game for everything? Like, what is your perfect world scenario for what you want Mike to be able to do?
I don't have an end game for Mike. I just want to ride the wave because I can feel it building up behind me.
Absolutely.
And I want to be involved. I think that you could be funny in a PG-rated type of way.
Sure.
And that's what Mike is all about. He's a funny man of sports, but he never steps over the line.
Good, okay.
He flirts with stepping over the line, but will never step over the line.
Which is what
you
need,
I want him to be licensed. A major corporation, kind of like a Geico Gecko or Aflac Duck, to be a brand advocate for that particular corporation.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think so much of what we hear nowadays in the sports world is somebody always stepping over the line and trying to make a joke at somebody else's expense, and not knowing, as you mentioned, when now you can flirt with the line, but you don't actually go over it. And I think so many times we see nowadays people literally launch themselves over the line and get themselves in a lot of trouble, unfortunately. But with something like this, you can poke a little fun, you can give people the laughs and the entertainment that they want, but as you said, you can do it in a nice, reserved, PG way without, offending too many people, because ultimately with something like this, kids are probably going to be the ones that are going to be attracted to it, and parents aren't going to want their kids going around something that's always making, bad jokes or offending a lot of people. They'll be like, well, I don't want my kid around it. So it seems like you really have a kid-friendly comic in that regards.
That's very true, but the demo for Mike, the demographic for Mike, is for a grandfather to be able to sit down with his grandkid and read the story or listen to Mike's podcast or check out his blog or see him on TV. Mike is a microphone. He's an ultimate talking head on sports.
Yep.
And literally and physically, he sits on a base. And metaphorically, our base for our character is such that we have a core set of ethics built into it, where we're not going to disparage people based on race, creed, color, sexual orientation, or whatever. We're going to take shots at people, but we'll give them the opportunity to be able to respond and also say, come on, you need to know better than that. Let's clean up your act. Let's do better. Let's think more positively. And I felt like a character is needed for that because there's so much. I mean, we're going through the presidential debates now. They're like, it's a slugfest, every debate.
Yep, exactly.
I don't want to get to that for Mike. I want to be more uplifting, encouraging, while being entertaining and funny.
Which is exactly what I think the sports world and just the entertainment world as a whole needs, which is fantastic. We're chatting with the creator of the Mike cartoon sports character here on the BG Sports Show, Jim Sweeney. So, Jim, I ask this with anybody that I ever hear that personally create something themselves, whether it be a book or, in this case, a character. Where and when did you know in your youth growing up or at whatever point in your lifetime you're like, you know what, I want to do this, I'm going to create Mike, and how do you continue to pull different inspirations for the blogs and podcasts that you do for him?
Well, the inspiration is out there every day. All you have to do is turn on the radio, TV, a podcast, or read a blog, or pick up a newspaper. And there's just an unending reservoir of stuff that you could do, write about, poke fun of, to comment about. But to answer your question, when did I know? It was a few years ago. I previously, with my wife, had a very successful computer sales business here in our home state of Florida, and we just wanted to do something different.
Okay.
And I felt like Mike was always inside me, but it was screaming to get out of my brain. And I said, I'm going to do it. I've had a good life. fortunately, we saved well. We put ourselves in a position where we had the money, the wherewithal, but most importantly, we had the inspiration, we had the moxie to go out there and just do what we always felt compelled that we wanted to do, is create something that could positively impact culture. And that's what I believe I've created with our Mike character.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you on that one. After looking at a couple of different of the blog posts and books and everything that you've posted, it's very obvious that you are incredibly comfortable and confident in what you're doing, and that's what you want. I mean, why do something if you're not confident that it's going to, change people for the better? Now, I'm
a little bit older, I guess, in the process. I'm not a young buck like you are, and I'm thinking I'm at the stage where I don't care what people think.
Yeah.
I want to do what I do that's legal, moral, and ethical. And I have a vision, and I'm going to bring it to fruition in a very big way. So if people want to take shots at our character, sometimes I'll post a blog, and the most successful blogs are the ones in which, I prick, some of the egos of, like, NASCAR fans or...
Ooh, hey, those NASCAR fans, they'll get after you. That's the funny thing about it.
My thing on NASCAR is Mike did a blog post, is NASCAR really a sport? He put it in the same category as curling and poker.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make too many listeners mad, but I'd probably agree with you on that one too, honestly. I mean, I feel like that could be an entire show dedicated around to what exactly classifies a sport. Well, that's fantastic. So what do you have on the horizon now for Mike? You've obviously written a bunch of blog posts and podcasts, but what are you working on coming up now, Jim?
I have 3 more books that I'm going to publish this year, and they all follow the same common theme. They're so simple, the books. They're usually books of lists. So I'm going to get 3 books out. They're all told through the voice of Mike with my own comics that I don't draw, but we commission somebody to do it for us. And to give you I guess a feel or a flavor for the book, people have asked, what's your number 1 selling Mike book? And I always tell them right away without skipping a beat, because it's Mike's Spiritual Sports Favorites.
Oh, really?
And then there's a pause. There's a silence, and they say, this guy's going religious on me.
Oh.
Not the case. Mike's favorite spiritual sports favorites are Amen Corner, the Immaculate Reception, Pigeon Heaven, the Hail Mary Pass, Tim Tebow, the Minister of Defense, and they're all religious terms that I developed into, usually an 800-word chapter as well as its own accompanying comic.
Okay.
So it's very different. It's a different look at sports.
Which is good, and I think, like you mentioned, though, too, anytime you mention religion and sports, immediately people are like, whoa, we can't be doing that now. Exactly. That's kind of like politics and religion, too. It's like all those faux pas, you just don't interact with them. But that's good that you're playing, and like you said, you're kind of tricking folks a little bit in that sense, too, saying, hey, you know what? Like, it's religious terms, but it's not the same thing, and I think that's awesome that you've done that. So, real quickly...
Yeah, and I have
stuff
like Mike's favorite big stuff on sports. It's about the big unit, the big hurt, the big fella, the big NBA logo. So that's Mike. That's what Mike's all about.
And that's fantastic, and I love that is the type of brand that you're portraying out there. So one other thing I got to ask, actually I have 2 questions I have to ask you. One, you mentioned that you're from Florida, and I have to ask where in Florida you're from, because I'm originally from Naples, Florida.
3 hours north up the coast on the Gulf in Clearwater.
Oh, sure.
Our beach, Clearwater Beach, number 1 beach in America.
I was just going to say, Clearwater Beach is gorgeous. That's fantastic.
I love Clearwater Beach.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. I just had to ask because you said you were from Florida, so I was like, I got to see where the fellow Floridian is from. So, okay, well, now, one of the things I understand from everything that I've heard and talking with you about, you've got a very different but exciting volunteer opportunity that you do in the world of sports. Can you share a little bit of insight into what that is?
Yes, I'm the head of the United States for an international organization called FIMBA. And FIMBA is an acronym for Federation International Masters Basketball Association.
Ooh,
it's
really?
Like FIBA, but the M is in there, is for Masters, which is a euphemism for older. It's for guys 35 plus, and I help recruit and organize teams to play in international Masters basketball tournaments.
Really? Wow. So it's kind of like the World Cup of older basketball players is what you're...
It is, and at times, depending on the division, it's like watching icebergs move, but we're still out there running up and down the court.
I'm assuming, did you play basketball then in growing up and still do?
I play 3 times a week.
Okay.
And The last Simba World Championship, and the site is Simba.net, Fimba.net.
Okay.
It was held at the ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex in Orlando several months ago. We had 216 teams from 35 countries.
Holy cow, wow, well, that's fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of former NBA players, national team players, Olympians. And, last year alone, I played in that tournament. I played in a tournament in Croatia, a tournament in Serbia. The year before that, I was in Greece. I was in Brazil. So we're still out there playing, and, there's not going to be alley-oop passes or slam dunking, but we're out there having fun.
Maybe a couple trampolines on the court might help you with that. That'd be fun. Well, awesome. Well, Jim, thank you so much for taking the time today. Before we let you go, where can people find not only your content for the websites, but maybe on social media as well?
TheMike.com. That's TH2Es. TheMike, TheEemike.com. And on Facebook and Twitter, just look at Mike on Sports.
Mike on Sports. Jim Sweeney, the creator of Mike on Sports, the comic series. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy Monday for us, Jim, and we look forward to hopefully having you on the program again in the future.
I'd love to be on the program again, and thank you for the time.
You're very welcome, Jim. All right, we are going to run to a break. When we come back, Peyton Manning hanging up the cleats. The sheriff has ridden out of town. We'll chat with David Kenyon of Bleacher Report right after this to see his thoughts on the man retiring. Back right after this on the BG Sports Show. Welcome back to the BG Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm your host, Baxter Colburn. Thanks for being here with us today on a Monday edition of the BG Sports Show. Just had an opportunity to speak with Mike on Sports. Jim Sweeney, the creator of Mike, the sports comic book character. Go and check out his stuff at themike.com. That's TheEemike.com. Check him out. Check out all the great content they had. And their interview as well will be posted on our Spreaker page as well right after the show is done. That's Spreaker.com/BG Sports Show. You can also find us on Facebook.com, Facebook.com/BG Sports Show. So for those of you that have been following the football world, you know that a man was lost today, unfortunately, to the world of retirement. Not in a not a bad way. He didn't pass away. He didn't do anything of that nature. But the sheriff, as folks have been calling him, Peyton Manning, has hung up his cleats for the last time. He's riding out of town with 2 Super Bowls under his belt, 2 rings, one for the Colts, one for the Broncos, and he is officially retiring. And who better to talk about the world of the NFL than a man who lives and breathes it on a daily basis? That would be Bleacher Report's David Kenyon. So, David, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad we can talk about the guy who won a Super Bowl as a baby horse and as an adult horse.
That's actually true. I didn't even realize that as soon as you said that, because I was like, yeah, he won with 2 horse-related teams, but I didn't even put the 2 connections together. Yeah, so there's a lot of different storylines that you could pull from this. So Peyton Manning retiring, David. What were your initial thoughts and feelings as soon as you heard that he was officially doing it? Because we heard rumors about it for weeks, and now it is officially done.
A long time coming, that's for sure. I don't think anybody realistically expected him to come back. You heard some rumors, maybe like the Texans. There's no way he would have gone to the 49ers. I don't even know if that was a rumor, but who knows? It probably was.
Starting the rumor now. Goodness, now people are going to start talking.
I don't know, but anyway, if it wasn't going to be the Broncos, it just wasn't going to be anyone. That seemed pretty clear for a long time. And what was even clearer than that was the Broncos wanted to keep Brock Osweiler because his contract was up. And you're not going to try to keep Osweiler on an 8-figure-a-year deal while you have Manning come back. So it was coming, and it was the right time. His noodle arm couldn't take it anymore.
True. That is, yeah, I'm still a little concerned how he got through this last season, honestly. I mean, I know he didn't play most of the season, and maybe that's how he got through this season is because he only got to play, split the duties in that regards due to injuries and all that. So you look at Peyton Manning, you look at his records. I mean, here's just a few fast facts about Peyton Manning. 54 game-winning drives, 539 touchdown passes, 5,477 yards back in that 2013 year during that single season. He also threw 55 touchdowns that year as well. He's had 14 4,000-yard seasons. He's thrown for almost 72,000 yards, and he's got 200 wins. And he's got 15 playoff appearances. That sounds like a trip to Canton, Ohio in my book. Do you agree with me on that one?
I don't see how he makes it past the first ballot.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks would be a little shocked if he didn't get in right away.
Yeah, he's kind of like Brett Favre. We knew for 5 years from the moment he retired for the last time that 5 years from that moment he would be headed to Canton.
Mm-hmm. I mean, why not? He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. He is a 5-time MVP award winner, 14-time Pro Bowler. He was the 2005 Walter Payton Man of the Year. He's won several first-team All-Pros. He was the Super Bowl. He was the MVP of the Super Bowl when he was there with the Colts. It's hard to argue against him. I mean, you can say what you want about his career declining towards the end there, the last year or two, but I think because he was able to still go out and pull off what he did in 2013, I think that really helped push him over the threshold, kind of saying, look, regardless of what he does from here on out, he's still an incredible quarterback, regardless of his age.
Yeah, and one thing that I wanted to make sure we mentioned was with that second Super Bowl, right now we look back at it and we're like, wow, man, that Denver defense carried Peyton that whole way. But just listening to some people yesterday about the report coming out that he was retiring officially, people are already remembering him as a guy who won a Super Bowl with 2 different teams. Nobody even cares that the defense did it, but that's the thing. I'm not saying you need to discount Peyton Manning's legacy. I hate legacy talk. He's great. He's awesome. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But history doesn't remember. History doesn't care to remember how you won your Super Bowl. You just have to win a Super Bowl.
Exactly. I mean, how many people still are the fact that they're like, hey, Joe Flacco, he won a Super Bowl. And I honestly forget that Joe Flacco is a Super Bowl winning quarterback because, like him, on a lot of other teams, the defense or whoever else helped carry that. But Joe Flacco's legacy is that, hey, I'm a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I mean, I've heard even for Trent Dilfer too, and he won a Super Bowl. It was like he wasn't that great of a quarterback at that time in his career, but he still has a Super Bowl ring, and he won. So good for him, kind of a thing. So it's funny though. I mean, you could make arguments back and forth about well, defenses. Why don't the defenses get more? Well, unfortunately, the defenses aren't at the same level as what a quarterback is. The quarterback is the focal point of any team, regardless of how good or bad they are, because teams live and die by their quarterbacks as well. So you talk about Manning and him winning a second Super Bowl, even though Von Miller and company definitely are the reason they won the Super Bowl. But at the end of the day, Manning's still going to get that extra boost of credit because he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Yeah, and that's the way we'll always hear him remembered, as two-time Super Bowl champion. You won't hear a one-time Super Bowl champion who also won another when the defense was really good.
Exactly.
It just doesn't roll off the tongue.
It's a little harder to deliver. And I think that applies to a lot of other sports too, not to get off on too big of a tangent, but how many other times do you hear that on, teams where LeBron James, when he won his 2 NBA titles, like how many other times do you hear those other guys on, the Miami Heat there, whoever they are nowadays, saying, oh, I'm a 1 or a 2-time NBA champion? It's like, no, LeBron James is a 2-time NBA champion, and like, oh yeah, I guess Dwayne Wade was there too, and a couple other guys. I mean, I know Dwayne Wade carries a little bit more weight than some of those other guys on the team at that point, but there's a couple of guys out there that have got a ring or 2 or 3 or 4 that they're not big names, but they just happen to be on the team, but no one really cares because they weren't the focal point of that offense or the defense at that time.
That's just the way football works. You're going to hear about the quarterback first and foremost. It's his fault when they lose, but it's often somebody else their credit when they win initially, but then it's always remembered as the quarterback.
I love that. That's just how the sports world works, unfortunately. I mean,
we are very fickle.
We are. We really are. So with Manning retiring now and the NFL moving away from Peyton Manning, I mean, does it really affect the league that much going forward now? I mean, I know we're kind of seeing the last of a crucial brand of players with Manning and Brady and maybe a couple other guys too, but Manning and Brady were those 1-2 punch for so long that carried the NFL for so long. It's like it's Manning, Brady, whatever. So do we have a next generation now of Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, even though Brady's still around and still playing at a very high level?
It's an interesting question. I definitely think you have to consider this the end of the Peyton Manning, Tom Brady era because they'll always be playing.
They will, yeah,
sure. And so then, if you're looking for who are the next greatest ones, like what era are we looking at? Maybe that's the Big Ben and Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, yeah.
I think that would make sense. And then following that, you're probably looking at the Cam Russ, and who knows, maybe the Bengals continue playing at this level, and we'll remember Dalton that way. But right now, it's Newton, Luck, Wilson, following the Rodgers, Big Ben.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one, which is interesting, too, that you say Big Ben and Rodgers, because they haven't played a ton over their careers. But I mean, I know they've met in a Super Bowl, which is obviously very important, but that is interesting, though, that you make that comparison. And I was trying to think, too. I was like, well, Aaron Rodgers would probably be one of the two guys, but couldn't think of who the other guy would be. So Roethlisberger, I think, definitely makes a good argument in that aspect of things.
Yeah, not necessarily as a rivalry. If you're looking more at that, I mean, well,
there's not much, unfortunately.
There's not much. You're probably hoping Cam and Russ turn into that.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's necessarily a Manning-Brady rivalry by any stretch of the imagination that's still in the league. Maybe Brady and Eli, if you look at the Super Bowls, but that's...
Yeah. That's all. I say that aside from that, though, they haven't really met a ton during their career. And I know this is a bit of a stretch, but if Colin Kaepernick had stayed at his same level of semi-decent, whatever he showed in the playoffs against Green Bay in those couple of games that they played each other, could a Kaepernick-Rodgers rivalry have been a thing, or is that too much of a stretch?
I think you look at a lot of what-ifs, and you could generate a rivalry from a lot of different things. I'd say that's probably a stretch.
Sure.
But for a while, it definitely looked like that would be an annual matchup.
It did, yeah, absolutely. And I think that was something that folks were really looking forward to, but I guess Colin Kaepernick never got that memo. So, all right, well, David, any other parting thoughts about the great gunslinger Peyton Manning before we got to let you run?
That I really do not care if you think he's the greatest quarterback or a top 5 or whatever. It's okay for him to be the greatest in your mind, and it's okay for Tom Brady to be the greatest in your mind, and it's okay for any other quarterback. It's just your personal ranking.
But don't
freak out. Peyton Manning was great.
He was, yes. He was a nice guy. But the real question, though, is, David, who's the best in your mind?
Tom Brady. He's got 4 rings.
Fair enough. And that's all I need from you.
I mean, Peyton Manning is a record holder in like every other category, and so I'm not saying Peyton Manning was bad.
Just Tom Brady's just a little bit better.
He just has the rings, and I'll take the rings.
That's perfectly fine in my book, too. Yeah, Tom Brady is definitely number one in my book as well. All right, Bleacher Report's David Kenyon. A pleasure as always, sir, and we look forward to your insights, not Thursday because you're off, but next Monday when you're back on the show.
Sounds good.
All right, enjoy your week, sir.
I will do that. You too.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, Mike Ferry will be here to chat about some interesting updates about the health and fitness world, to tell us a few different ways to stay in shape during a timeout or a halftime break as well when you're at home on the couch. So we'll get to him in just a little bit. On the other side, you're listening to the BG Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. Welcome back to the BG Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm your host, Baxter Colburn. Thanks so much for being here with us on this Monday edition of the BG Sports Show. We've had a great show so far. I had the opportunity to speak with Bleacher Report's David Kenyon. We've also had an opportunity to speak with the Mike Comic Books' Jim Sweeney as well. And we'll get to our second guest here, or our third guest in just a moment, but we want to take a minute to remind all of you that if you enjoy listening to the BG Sports Show, you can find us on Sports Radio America from 4 to 6 p.m. Central Time and on the TuneIn app. You can also get us on demand on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and on Spreaker.com as well. And if you want to listen to the show live, as we do the show here is on Mondays and Thursdays, you can find it from 1 to 2 p.m. Central Time on Spreaker.com. All right, we now get to welcome in a new guest to the show. It's been a day of new guests today, so that's fantastic. We are now joined by Mike Ferry, and he's going to be here to tell us a little bit about 3 ways to improve your happiness and heart during the next timeout or halftime. So with that, welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, Baxter, thanks so much. I'm happy to be here.
You're very welcome, Mike. So give us a little bit of background on who you are and what makes you qualified to talk about things here on the show.
Sure thing. Well, I'm actually a veteran middle school history teacher, and I'm a father of 4 kids and the author of a book titled Teaching Happiness and Innovation. And over the past few years, I've become very interested in the science of happiness.
Okay. And
how how happiness can impact our well-being and also our overall health. And I thought it'd be interesting since I am a sports fan, and I know that if we're watching a game, there's a timeout or a halftime always in our future. And what
at least one or two. Yep.
That's right. So what can we do during that time to try to boost our health and also maybe help out our happiness.
And that's a very interesting point that you make, because as most folks know, I mean, I'm definitely guilty of it too. It's like, oh, a commercial comes on, or oh, it's halftime. Everybody immediately either A, goes to the bathroom, or B, goes straight to their phone and is, doing something on social media instead of utilizing those couple of minutes to do something about it. And you seem like you've come up with a couple different ways to help us get off our butt, as it were, and get off the couch during those timeouts and halftime breaks.
Sure, absolutely. And, this is actually really important because, heart disease is actually the number one killer of Americans, and many of us are concerned about that. But it turns out that happiness is one of the most interesting ways to improve our heart health and our longevity and our immune system.
Wow, so, that's interesting.
It's really amazing. We don't tend to think about it that way, but if we can become more positive, more optimistic people, then that has a huge impact on our whole lives.
So you're saying there's no hope for fans of like the Cleveland Browns or the Detroit Lions or the Chicago Bears then for happiness?
Well, I would say if you focus on improvement, maybe even from down to down or quarter to quarter, maybe not the overall record and your season win-loss record, but if you just focus on moment to moment, showing a little bit of improvement, then maybe that's okay.
That's fantastic, and I think that's a message that fans from most teams need to hear on a weekly, even down to down basis. Honestly,
that's right. And I'm actually a UNC Tar Heel fan.
Oh, okay.
And very excited right now. Of course, we just beat Duke and we got the number one seed in the ACC tournament. But from time to time, I always have to remind myself, big picture. This is only basketball. You have a life beyond what's going on the court right now. Although
True.
It's really hard to get that message sometimes.
It is, yep, exactly. And I think that's one thing sports fans lose focus of at times. So aside from focusing on the happiness of it, is there a couple different exercises or things that people can get up and do to help out at all? Or what different things can we focus on?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, gratitude is actually one of the things that tends to make us happier. And gratitude, recently, there's some studies that show gratitude specifically having a good impact on heart health.
Oh, wow.
People who are actually in the hospital suffering from heart-related issues, if they practice on showing gratitude every day for a period of weeks and months, they showed more improvement than didn't. So one thing we can do, of course, many of us are not naturally wired for gratitude. We might not think about it that much.
True.
But during a timeout, if you've got a minute or two, just get a Post-it note and write down one thing on that Post-it note that you're grateful for, and set up a gratitude somewhere in your house or your office, wherever you're watching or listening to the game. Mm-hmm. And if you do this timeout after timeout and day after day, week after week, you leave it up there, then after a while you'll see, not just one or two things, but maybe a few dozen things you're grateful for.
Yeah.
And that'll start to improve your gratitude level, your happiness, and your overall health.
Wow. That's definitely one of them. I feel like gratitude is something that our society needs a lot more of, because so many people feel like they're entitled to things. It's like, well, I obviously deserve this because I've done this. It's like, no, just be grateful for some of the things you have and, show a little respect at times as well.
Sure, and it's easy. This is something that doesn't cost anything other than the cost of a Post-it note and a pencil.
Exactly.
And it does make a big difference.
Agreed. Absolutely. So gratitude, as we're making our list, we've got gratitude. What other things can we do?
Okay, well, the second thing is kindness. And the more time we spend being kind or showing compassion towards others, then the happier and the healthier we are. So during a timeout, you mentioned earlier that many of us grab our phones. Well, it's okay. Grab your phone. But instead of, just doodling around, send a kind text or an email or maybe a message on social media to someone you haven't talked to in a while. and just go on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Just send out something. Hey, I'm thinking about you. Just want you to know. I'm watching the Carolina game, and I remember years ago how we always loved talking about the Duke rivalry or whatever. And I miss you. Hope to see you soon. Something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Those go a long way.
And it can go a long way. And like I said, when we show kindness for others, it makes us happier and healthier, and also it can improve the quality of our friendships, especially with those we haven't talked to in a while. And that's a big part of our overall happiness.
That is great, yeah. So as we're chatting here with Mike Ferry on the BG Sports Show, he's giving us 3 ways to improve your happiness and heart during the next timeout or halftime. So we've already talked about gratitude, we've talked about kindness, and now our third and final one would be what, Mike?
That's right. So the third one is creativity. And like with gratitude and kindness, the more time we spend being creative, the happier and healthier we're likely to be. So one thing you can do is a free association exercise where you take 5 words and you try to put them together in a little short story, maybe 1 or 2 sentences. And it doesn't have to be written down. It can just be something you think about, or again, with your phone, maybe you record a voice memo and you play it back and you see if it makes sense. But just to give you an example, I'm going to pick 5 words here, and what you try to do is you put them together in a little short story. Okay? So I've got stapler, orange, George Washington, Seattle, and water buffalo.
Oh my goodness!
Completely random. Crazy. All right. I'll say it again. Stapler, orange, George Washington, Seattle, and water buffalo. So, would you like to give it a shot?
I would. And you said all it is just making a little, just a short story about it?
Right. It's just 1 or 2 sentences. You don't have to write it down. It could be completely crazy. And in fact, the crazier, the better.
Okay. So let's see here. Wow. One day I was driving to Seattle and found a water buffalo on the side of the road that slightly resembled George Washington. And after taking a picture with him, I continued on my drive and found an orange cart on the side of the road. And the man also asked me if I wanted to buy a stapler as well. It was included in the orange price, and I thought it was a pretty good day.
Very well done.
Okay, thank you.
Now, did that make any kind of a change in your brain? Did you feel more awake, more alive, a little more energized right now because of that?
I did, yes. I definitely feel a little bit more alert, because as soon as you asked, would you like to go, I was like, sure. And my brain kicked in, and I was like, all right, let's be creative about this. What can we do? And yeah, that was actually very interesting. And I'm actually a little upset that I didn't do I had a much better story in my head that I couldn't somehow get the words out to. But that works out though. That's interesting.
No, that's perfectly fine. And actually, the more you practice, the better you get.
True.
And if your listeners want some more ideas, I've got a bunch of them on my website at happinessandinnovation.com. Happinessandinnovation.com. And if you go to my blog, there's a recent post. 10 ways to boost your creativity, and I've got 10 of these little free association exercises, and that's 10 timeouts right there.
They're
already done for you.
And depending on if you're watching an NBA basketball game, you probably get 10 timeouts in the last 5 minutes if it's a close game. So that's plenty of time for you.
Exactly, and with conference tournaments and the NCAA tournament, you got all kinds of opportunities.
Absolutely. Well, fantastic. Well, Mike, we got to let you run, but you'll be back again on Thursday, right?
Yes, that's correct.
That's right, yes. Mike Ferry will be back on the program on Thursday. He'll be chatting a little bit about how parents can use sports to teach happiness to their kids. So I'm really excited to talk to you again on Thursday about that, Mike. So thank you so much for taking the time today. And real quick again, where can they find your website, and then if you're on social media as well?
Sure. So the website is happinessandinnovation.com, and you can connect with me on Twitter at Mike Ferry 7. That's the number 7, Mike Ferry 7.
Fantastic. Mike Ferry, a pleasure, sir, and we look forward to having you back again on Thursday. Thanks for taking some time today.
Absolutely, Baxter. Thank you. That's fun.
You're very welcome. All right, we're going to run to a quick break. When we come back, Connor Christensen is here to talk about UFC 196 and the crazy upsets that were there and what it means for the future of UFC with Ronda Rousey and some of those other big folks. We'll be right back with more on the BG Sports Show right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the BG Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm your host, Baxter Colburn. Thanks so much for joining us here on a Monday edition of the BG Sports Show. We've had a great show so far, some great guests, great conversation, and now we get to bring in our Fight Corner expert, Connor Christensen, back to the program. It was a busy weekend in the UFC world. UFC 196 took place, and only Connor can do it justice by telling us how it all shook down. So, Connor, welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So, I'm sure you probably were freaking out much more than I was because you appreciate the fights a little bit more than I did, but some big upsets, some big things. We'll get to that in a second. So walk us through the event that was UFC 196.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk about the main fight card for UFC 196 because let's face it, that's the part that you, the viewers, care about. All right. Moving forward, there was the first fight was versus Amanda Nunes versus Valentina Shevchenko.
Oh, okay. I've heard you talk about Shevchenko before.
Yes, I have. I think only mentioned her one time before. Amanda Nunes is ranked 4th, I believe.
Wow.
Or she was before the fight, and Shevchenko was ranked 10th, I believe.
Okay.
And going into the fight, people were picking Nunes to be Nunes was the favorite, and Nunes did win by unanimous decision at the end.
Okay.
Shevchenko looked much more poised, looked much better, especially in the third round, but beginning of the first round, just with how they were posturing, Shevchenko knew the distance between the two of them extraordinarily well. I saw Nunes throw a wild kick, and Shevchenko didn't even move because it was not going to hit her, and she knew it wasn't going to hit her. So I thought that Shevchenko looked really, really good. It was just Nunes is much stronger and was much more aggressive.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So if Shevchenko had been a little bit more aggressive, I actually think Shevchenko could have taken that fight. But Nunes did win, so she might be moving up towards a title shot eventually.
Okay. It's always weird about some of that stuff, too, when you hear about aggressiveness and fighting or not. I feel like if you're going into a fight, why wouldn't you be aggressive? But maybe that's just an outsider not knowing the fighting world very well.
Here's the reason why. Shevchenko is typically a Muay Thai background. And now Muay Thai fights, they start very slow. The first round is usually not much happens.
Okay.
And that's because the fighters are feeling each other out.
Sure.
And then rounds 2 through whatever are
and it's just kind of go
action-packed. Now they know who they're up against, what the strengths, weaknesses are, and then they fight each other. So that's kind of what Shevchenko is pushing for. Kind of leans more towards that. So that can work, but also if you aren't finishing the fights, then that will not work in the UFC because Nunes is picking up points by landing punches, taking takedowns, all sorts of other things that the judges will give her points for.
Sure.
And Shevchenko was not doing those things. She was maintaining her composure. She was fighting very well, but she was fighting cautiously. She was not going out there. She wasn't landing strikes, really. She wasn't taking down. She wasn't controlling the octagon. She wasn't doing other things like that.
She was letting the fight
points. Yeah.
I mean, she was letting the fight come to her, but not in a good way.
Yeah, exactly. She was way too reactive, not active herself.
That's going to get you hurt in this kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's not going to allow for many points scored. But Nunes won, so maybe she'll get a title fight in years to come. Probably not anytime soon.
Probably not. No.
That was a bantamweight division, so that is the division with Miesha Tate, Holly Holm, and Ronda Rousey. So unfortunately for them, there's a lot of very good competition.
Got to wait around, yeah.
Wow. So the second fight was a light heavyweight fight, Corey Anderson versus Tom Lawler. Tom Lawler is a veteran of the sport. He's 33 years old. He's been fighting for a long time. He has a lot of fights under his belt, and it was definitely, I don't want to say the favorite, but he's definitely the veteran presence going into it. Now Corey Anderson is 27.
Okay. Is that old? Just as a side note, what's an average age of a UFC fighter? Or an average lifespan of a UFC fighter?
So UFC fighters can enter the UFC from the time they're 20 to 22-ish to all the way up until they're 37, 38.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
I was wondering because with something like fighting, I don't know how long you'd want to stay in that.
The title holder of the light heavyweight division, Cormier, is 37.
Oh, wow.
And he holds the belt.
Wow.
So that's going to be a fight for April. John Jones versus Cormier.
That'll be fun. Okay.
That will be a phenomenal fight because they have so much animosity between the two of them. They've done a lot of interviews swearing at each other. And then John Jones was the champion, and then he had his title taken from him for off the field, court, so to speak. Yeah. So anyway, that'll be a conversation for a different day. Huh. But Corey Anderson beat Tom Lawler by unanimous decision, if I can talk. And I actually disagreed with that ruling. I thought that Tom Lawler not definitely, but I thought Tom Lawler was landing more strikes, was controlling the octagon more. He looked better than Anderson did, and I really thought that Lawler should have won the fight, but he almost finished it pretty much right away in the first round. He came out, he landed a shot that buckled Anderson, and then couldn't quite finish it. But so Corey Anderson is moving up. He lost a fight a little while ago, but now he's come back and he's won a couple fights.
Okay,
so
that's good rebounding.
So he looks like he might be making a comeback here. The third fight was also a light heavyweight. It was Guyan Vellante versus Ilir Latifi. And this fight also was settled in unanimous decision at the end, and Latifi managed the win last night. The fight was honestly pretty boring. Not much happened. They landed a couple strikes, but both of them looked tired and all sorts of, they have to work on their conditioning a little bit. Latifi is a wrestler, but didn't get a whole lot of chance to take it to the ground. So he landed more strikes. I think he had a couple takedowns. He had about 3 takedowns in the fight, significant takedowns.
Okay.
And then Vellante just couldn't keep up with the points, I guess.
Interesting.
But all around, those 3 fights were fairly boring. Not a whole lot happened.
Not much for your money's worth on that one.
Yeah. Latifi, Anderson, and Nunes were the 3 victors.
Okay.
So moving on to the co-main events.
Yes.
The first fight was Holly Holm versus Miesha Tate. Now, when I came in and I made my predictions, I thought that Holly Holm would retain her title.
Yes, you did make that.
And secretly, I was rooting for Miesha Tate. I think Miesha Tate is extraordinarily underrated.
We've heard about her on the show a couple times, yeah.
She's been getting better every single fight that she has. She was undefeated the 4 fights before that. She has not lost since, I think it was 2012.
Yeah.
So, ever since, since Ronda beat her. And I was really rooting for Tate. I really think it's Tate's time to shine. And to be honest, if Ronda right now, or Ronda in her prime versus Tate now, that would be a really, really good fight to watch. Holly Holm definitely won rounds 3 and 4.
Okay.
But in round 2, Tate took her down and grounded and pounded her for about 3 minutes straight.
Jeez.
Now, there were about 2 or 3 times where if Tate had been able to keep up the pressure, just if Holm hadn't been able to move just a little bit, the ref would have needed to stop the fight because Tate was just destroying her.
Which, I mean, is that surprising, though? Like, knowing the 2 fighters?
Absolutely not. No? Absolutely not. Tate's ground game is phenomenal. She is great at ground and pound. She's great at submissions. Holly Holm is just fantastic stand-up fighter.
Sure.
Her boxing and kickboxing background.
And we saw her try to launch a few hits, too, but with kicks as well.
Definitely. So she landed way more shots than Tate did, but the damage that Tate did on the ground is what clinched it. So in the 5th and final round, there was, I think, 2 minutes or 1:30 to go left, and Tate took her down. She had been very aggressive in rounds 4 and 5, especially with her takedown attempts. For the most part, Holm had stuffed them, but she got 1 takedown in the 5th and was able to mount her back and slipped rear naked choke. So she got basically a headlock underneath the neck and was cutting off air circulation. It's the go-to submission for a lot of people, although it was Tate's first win by
submission?
No, by rear naked choke.
Rear naked choke.
She has done a lot of arm bars, a lot of other things, but never a rear naked choke. And Holm almost threw her off. She threw her over her the front side of her body. She tried to throw her over, and somehow, I do not know how, Tate held on, took her down with her, and then kept the choke. And Holly Holm did not tap out. She was knocked unconscious. She was. Oh man, it was so interesting to see because she's first trying to pry the arm off. Yeah. And then you can tell that she does not know where she is, and she just starts boxing with the air. So she just threw 3 punches and then her arms dropped.
Oh geez.
And then the fight was ended.
The ref just called it at that point.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she was out. So Holm went out like a champ. Miesha Tate had nothing but great things to say about Holm at the end. And honestly, if she hadn't have gotten that submission, if that had gone the distance, if that had gone to unanimous decision, Holm probably would have won that fight because the 5th round was going Holm's way.
Until that point where it flipped around kind of thing.
Yeah. So Holm definitely would have won the fight in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because the first round could have gone either way with who won it. And then the second round was definitely Tate won that one. And then 3 and 4 were definitely Holm.
Okay.
And if the fight had gone on, I think Holm would have won by decision. But Tate was able to clinch it at the end there.
Now, what does that mean then? I mean, because I asked you couple of weeks ago, I said, what if Miesha Tate wins? Like, how does that make Ronda Rousey feel?
Okay, well, Dana White.
And now Miesha Tate has won.
Yeah, so Dana White texted Ronda telling her what happened, and Ronda said, well, it looks like I have to come back to work, which makes me extraordinarily excited because this is the matchup. Because Ronda Holm, well, the way Ronda was fighting at the time, she was fighting super sloppy. She was not in, her head wasn't in it, she wasn't in it. So I don't even know if I call that a fair fight.
She didn't look like she wanted to be in the ring, honestly.
No,
or the octagon.
She definitely did not. I think Ronda at her prime would have given Holm definitely a better fight.
Is Ronda past her prime? Are we past this point already?
Well, no, that's not what I mean.
You mean Holm at her prime?
No. What I mean by that was if Ronda's fighting seriously, if she is 100%, all of her mindset is in the fight.
Yes.
But she had so many other things going on. There was drama with the boyfriend who was still married or something like that. It was a whole big thing. He's no longer married, so they are.
I hope not.
They are together now, and he can be with her. But
the things you hear.
So there was that going on. She was doing movies. She was fighting 3 times a year, 4 times a year, which is a ton of fighting.
Yeah.
And
considering.
So she was not, physically she wasn't in her peak. Mentally she wasn't completely there. So I think that fight could have been a lot better if she had, kind of backed off. She wasn't traveling the world doing press. She wasn't doing movies, all of this stuff. And that's great. Do the movies, do the press, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, she's good at what she does off the ring, court, octagon
off
thing.
The stage. I don't know. Off the scene.
Wherever she is.
Yeah. She is a phenomenal speaker. She's great with people. She's very, very good at being a symbol for people to rally behind. And that is wonderful because I think that's great that that she is that role model for people.
Yeah, which is, I think people really do look up to her, honestly.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I don't think that went away just because she lost the fight.
Yeah.
But Dana White said that the next defense will be Ronda Tate whenever Ronda comes back. Now, I know Holm wants it, but I don't think that...
So you got to get those two back at it again eventually.
Yeah. There will be a rematch for those two, I'm sure.
I hope so.
But for now, it's looking like Tate versus Ronda. Now that we've talked about the bantamweight title, Miesha Tate, great gal.
Love her.
We're going to move on to the fight of the hour, the McGregor-Diaz fight.
A very interesting, controversial fight that was set up because the original man, Jose Aldo, that was supposed to take on McGregor, couldn't because he broke his foot?
Yes, he broke his foot.
So
McGregor had strong words to say about that.
Nate Diaz stepped in, and folks are kind of like, why is Nate Diaz here? I think because he's lost a considerable amount of games, matches, fights, whatever.
Yeah, he has lost 10. He's 19-10 now from last night. Going into the fight, he was 18-10. So he has not won a ton of... Well, I mean, he has won a ton of fights, but he has also lost an equally number,
I think he's lost a little bit more fights than folks like... If you're just looking at it on paper, it'd be like, well, this shouldn't be a close fight. McGregor's undefeated.
Well, I mean, that being said, Diaz is the real deal. He has overcome so much to be a fighter, and he is brutal in the octagon. He's a fantastic fighter, not taking anything away from him going into it, but I thought it would be no matchup. Like McGregor would just beat him outright, and that was not the case. Diaz came out and in the second round popped him, and McGregor was stunned.
Tapped, didn't he?
He did tap, but Diaz popped him, got him twice. It was the left that really, really stunned him, and then McGregor was on the run the rest of the time, eventually gave up his back, and Diaz got a rear naked choke, and McGregor tapped. Yeah. Now, that being said, Diaz did not win that fight.
No? I mean, he won, but he didn't win.
He won on paper.
Yeah.
He won on paper. But McGregor was the better fighter. He was faster. He was stronger. He landed way more shots. He bloodied Diaz.
Yeah, we saw him. He looked beat up. He didn't look good.
He was stunned several times. If McGregor had just gone in and finished it, then, obviously McGregor would have won.
Why didn't he then?
Because he was toying with him. You could see it.
Why toy?
He would have his hands up like he's fighting, and then he would just drop his hands and walk towards him. I saw him stick out his chin at Diaz a couple times. And the fight started, and he started doing that, and I was like, no, keep your hands up, keep your hands up. Yeah. Because you cannot do that in the UFC, especially against a guy like Diaz, who is so dangerous, even when he's bloodied and everything. So McGregor served that fight up on a silver platter for Diaz. Do I think McGregor can come back and take the belt and all of that stuff in 3 weight classes?
Sure.
Yes, I do. He is an animal.
Oh, absolutely.
If any of you don't know what he looks like, go look at a comparison from when he's 145 to when he's 170. Mm-hmm. He is huge.
He's a
massive.
Big guy
he
now,
looks like a beast at 170.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept his speed. He kept his timing. He upped his power.
Yeah.
There was nothing bad about him besides his overconfidence.
Yeah. And that sometimes is the downfall of people.
Wow. So I hope he stays at 170 to make another shot of it here. I know he's got a couple guys at 145 that want a title shot. So I could potentially see him coming back and fighting at 145. And I know he still wants a shot at that 155 belt with Dos Anjos. And that will be, personally, I think Dos Anjos is a better fighter than Diaz. So, like, pound for pound, I think Dos Anjos is definitely a better fighter.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
If I could talk to Mr. McGregor right now, I would tell him, obviously he's not going to be discouraged, but don't be discouraged. You were the better fighter. You just got to keep your hands up and don't go into it thinking that you've won. You have to fight first.
Exactly. You have to earn the fight. It's great that you get on the ice. Wow, on the I'm mixing up everything today.
It's all good.
Ice, rings, fields, court, wherever the heck that they do the fighting. It's great that he did that, but at the same time, you can't be overconfident. Every game, every match, anything that you do in the sports world, anything can happen, regardless. If you're 100-0 and the team you're playing is 0-100.
Yeah. Pound for pound, McGregor is still the best fighter in the UFC, besides maybe Demetrius Johnson. That would be an interesting comparison, because Demetrius Johnson is a strawweight 125, and I think he might be a better fighter than McGregor. But
interesting.
McGregor, he definitely could hold 3 belts at once. I don't think that's out of the picture yet.
He's probably going to try.
Oh, I would think so.
Why not?
He was definitely the better fighter than Diaz. Yeah. And that breaks my heart that he gave that fight to Diaz. He gave it to him. Oh, man, I was so mad. I was so mad about it. I'm not mad that he lost. I'm mad that he gave it to him. Because he could have won at least 4 or 5 different spots that I remember off the top of my head. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
All right. Well, Connor, thank you so much for taking the time today, sir. As more fighting news emerges, especially if we hear about Ronda and that possible matchup coming up, we'll make sure to have you back on. And as always, you can hear Connor's Fight Corners here on Mondays on the BG Sports Show and his fitness tips on Thursdays as well. So, all right, Connor, you enjoy your week, sir, and we'll talk to you on Thursday.
All right, sounds good.
We'll be right back with more on the BG Sports Show. Welcome back to the BG Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm your host, Baxter Colburn. So we ran a little bit longer than I thought we would today, so unfortunately we're not going to be able to get to the MLS opening weekend. Well, we can, but we're going to do it in about 15 seconds, so everybody hold on tight real fast. So really quick, opening weekend, Toronto beat the Red Bulls 2-0. NYCFC beat Chicago 4-3. Real Salt Lake and Orlando tied thanks to 2 90-plus minute stoppage time goals from Orlando. FC Dallas took down Philadelphia 2-0. Houston and my New England Revolution tied 3-3 thanks to a late Kobayashi header. San Jose defeated Colorado 1-0. Portland defending their home turf against the Columbus Crew by a score of 2-1. Montreal took down Vancouver 3-2. Sporting Kansas City beat Seattle 1-0. And the LA Galaxy come from behind to score 4 second-half goals to beat DC United 4-1. So that was your weekend in review real quick like. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening to this edition of the BG Sports Show. Thank you to Jim Sweeney, David Kenyon, Mike Ferry, and Connor Christensen for joining us on the program today. On Thursday, the sports doctor, Dr. Bob Wheel, will be here. Braxton Cosby will be here as well. And Mike Ferry will rejoin us, and Connor Christensen will have his fitness tip as well. A lot of great things you're not going to want to miss. A fitnessy, heavy show, but we'll get some other extra sports in there too. Don't you worry about that. Mondays and Thursdays, 1 to 2 p.m. Central Time here on Spreaker.com. SportsRadioAmerica.com from 4 to 6 p.m. Central Time and on TuneIn and on demand on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and on Spreaker. Social media, Facebook, The BG Sports Show on Facebook, and on Twitter at BG Sports Show, at Baxter Colburn. And shoot us an email at bgsportsshow@gmail.com. From all of us here at The BG Sports Show, you enjoy your Monday. Omaha, Omaha, Peyton Manning has retired. We'll see you all on Thursday.